طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I want to welcome all of you inshallah ta'ala to this new series inshallah of programming بإذن ta'ala Friday nights, the online Fatwa sessions with Sheikh Ahmad Kutty. We're going to be holding these sessions inshallah ta'ala every Friday at 8 p.m. Now you can go ahead and send us your questions if you want them to be answered بإذن ta'ala, or you can actually just write them and type them up for us on our Facebook page. We're also live on YouTube. We're live on the Facebook IIT Youth Council page. We're also live on Twitter accounts as well, بإذن ta'ala. So if you are just joining us, this is a new program, بإذن ta'ala. It's an online fatwa session by Sheikh Ahmad Kutty, who's online, inshallah, who will be joining us, بإذن ta'ala. But we do ask you to send questions that you would like answered by Sheikh Ahmad Kutty, بإذن ta'ala, so we can get them answered for you, inshallah. So at this moment here, I do want to invite Sheikh Ahmed to come on and Sheikh Ahmed, if you can go ahead, inshallah ta'ala, and just begin the program that you have.
Inshallah.
Bismillah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma. Ya Allah, teach us that which is beneficial for us and bless us in the knowledge you have granted us and increase our knowledge. Brothers and sisters, it's my honor to welcome you to this session, live fatwa session. I have a few questions handed to me before, so I would like to answer them one by one. And then if you have time, you can also ask questions in writing. I would prefer in our future sessions, if you send me the questions in advance, that would be much appreciated. Now, let me begin the first question here. What is the ruling about a person who is present for 2 Jumas in a location? Can he refrain from joining the congregation? Actually, I don't know why a person who is at the mosque where the congregation is held, Juma is held, why he would refrain from joining the Juma prayer. Juma prayer is Farla Ain. It is a shi'ar of Islam. If you neglect 3 Jumas consecutively, Allah may place a seal on your heart. It's one of the enormity of sins. So no one who cherishes faith can refrain from joining the Jummah prayer. It's one thing if you have prayed 1 Jummah and there is a Jummah repeated a second time in the same mosque, he doesn't need to join the second one. But the first one, he should join. But my suspicion is this person is following the Lahiri school of jurisprudence, the view of Imam Ibn Hazm, who consider it invalid when prayer is held, without proper lines. In this case, maybe they are using the excuse that there is a gap of 6 feet or more between the 2 worshippers. This is a question I will address later on. Maybe he is relying on this position, which is an isolated view. It is not the view of the majority. The 4 schools are against it. They say that although detailed answer will be given, it's not an essential integral of congregational prayer that the line is properly formed, because we are allowed to pray behind all alone in the line, although it's undesirable. Also, we know Sahaba did pray by themselves in their rooms following Jama'ah.
Just a clarification, Sheikh Ahmed.
Yes.
So the person here, the belief is that the person meant if they have already prayed 1 Jama'ah and they are still there.
Okay, if they have already prayed, because the question addressed to me was, can he refrain from both prayers? The
Mm-hmm.
answer is no. If he has to join one of the Jummah, but having done that, he doesn't need to join the second one. But if he wishes to, it would be considered a nafila for him, a nafil prayer, because that's another question that is following. So a person who doesn't follow any of these two Jumas, maybe he's doing so because he's following the view of Ibn Hazm. That view is an isolated view. It's opposed to the four schools and also majority of the scholars, and they have strong evidence to support themselves. So this cannot be, a person who is doing that must ask himself why he is doing that, and it is important for him to correct himself. And the second question that is following from the same is, can he join both prayers? Surely he can do that. There is an incident. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw two people present in the masjid. He was praying Salatul Fajr. He prayed Salatul Fajr, and he came to know these two individuals did not join the Jama'ah. So after the Salah, Prophet asked them, uh, why you didn't join the Jama'ah? They said, we have prayed in our homes. So the Prophet told them, if you pray in your homes and you come to the masjid and the Jama'ah is in progress, you should join the Jama'ah. And this is also the understanding of the companions of the Prophet. We know Anasur Malik, Hudayfa, and many others. If they were to come to a masjid after having prayed in another masjid in Jama'ah, they would still repeat the prayer, although it is not obligatory on them, but because they want to seize that reward, uh, double rewards, because there is always a reward. The one of the prayer is fardu for you, the others will be considered as a nafila for you, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the two individuals. So, but having said that, in the Maliki school, there is a ruling that if you have already prayed in a Jama'ah in the masjid, in one masjid, and you go to the another masjid, you don't need to repeat that. That's the view of Maliki school. But of course, they also say if there is an exception made, if you have gone to Masjid al-Haram of Makkah, or if you have gone to Al-Masjid al-Nabawi or Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, and of course you should do the Jama'ah again, join the Jama'ah again, because of the multiple rewards, excellent rewards promised for prayers in these three mosques. I hope I have
Okay. So
clarified.
just as a follow-up, Sheikh, inshallah. So
Yes.
what happens? So I think the question here comes sometimes because there are people who are actually working in the masajid. So those who are volunteering in the masajid and so on. So now the volunteers are actually organizing the prayers itself. And as one salah is performed, they usually would wait and pray the second one, or they would pray the first one and not pray the second one.
That's understandable, because they have valid reasons. And of course, no scholar has said if you have prayed once in Jama'ah in the masjid, you have to redo it again in the same masjid. No scholar has said that, but if you do so, you will get rewards. That's what I'll say. But in the case of those who are working, who have take care of the worshippers, they should not, because their responsibility is, primary responsibility in this case is to take care of the worshippers. As if you have done, they have already prayed in one Jama'ah, or they plan to pray in the second Jama'ah, whatever.
Perfect, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Now, the other question I have is, what effort should we make to register and go to the masjid due to the COVID lockdown, 19 lockdown? Uh, the answer is, in this present crisis, the health authorities have instituted very strict guidelines, and it is important as Muslims we abide by all of them, because by failing to do so, we risk our health and the health of others. So if you are an individual, the health authorities permit you to go to the masjid because you belong to that certain age group and you are free of the other challenges like diabetic condition or other health challenges, and therefore they allow you to go, and you are a younger person, especially if you are young, below 60, then you should try your best to go to the masjid. But if you belong to the category that medical challenges and you are afraid, then definitely you should not go to the masjid, because it's important for us to protect our health and the health of others as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the people who have eaten garlic not to go to the masjid until they have killed that smell. And also he did not allow people, and it is understood in fiqh that people suffering from diseases that they may pass on to others, they should pray in the home. Otherwise they are harming others. So in this case, only those who are healthy and allowed by the health authorities to go to the masjid, they should register and try to go. All others should stay home and pray, and they will have the same rewards because they are doing so because of the valid excuses allowed in the Sharia. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah likes us to make use of the concessions he has granted, even as he wants us to do the azaim, the obligatory injunctions that he has imposed on us. So it's better for such people to pray at home, following the virtual khutbah and virtual, whatever streamed live. They can pray the Juma at home after listening to the virtual khutbah, if they have a person to lead them in salah at home.
So, Sheikh Ahmed, just a question as a follow-up, inshallah. Would it be considered as a Jum'ah at this time, now that the masajid are a certain capacity, and at the same time the pandemic is still on? Is it considered as a wajib for those who are capable and able to go to the masjid to go to Jum'ah?
Yes, it would be. It would be if they are healthy, if they are free of this virus and they are tested and they have a permission from the health authorities, they should go. They should go if they can register and they pass all of the test screening procedures, then they should go. It would be wajib on them. But as for others, it's not wajib. They should pray at home.
Okay.
Because Juma is a shi'ar, it is a sha'ira, it is one of the great symbols, and it is obligatory on everyone who is able to go there. In this
So what
case,
but Sheikh,
yes.
I'm sorry, forgive me for interrupting you. So Sheikh, the question is what if someone is actually fearful? So they're not actually sick themselves, but they are fearful that they may get sick, or they're fearful that they may infect other people. Because as you know, the pandemic is, the issue with this COVID-19 disease is the fact that people can be asymptomatic for quite some time and still pass on the disease itself.
If they are afraid and they have reasonable ground to be afraid of, then yes, that's a reason itself. In Sharia, things are judged by ghalabatul dhann. Ghalabatul dhann is you don't need to be 100%, but you have a reasonable suspicion. You know yourself better. Each person knows about his condition better, and he thinks he's afraid of getting this virus, then he should stay home. Yes, that's a different, but if he is going all everywhere, in the shopping mall everywhere, and he's not going to the Juma while he has passed the test, then that's a different matter altogether. Because especially if he's able to keep follow all those stringent regulations. If he's in the habit of going to shopping mall, not for essential grocery, for shopping, and he's all around, and he's not going to the Juma, if he is able to do it, that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows where do we stand. Man knows himself. Because ask yourself, istafti nafsak wa in naftauk wa in naftauk. Consult your believing conscience, even if they give you a different ruling. Because what they say is here, the meaning of this hadith is They may give you a relaxed ruling, but you know yourself better than that mufti. So where do you belong? And are you able to do it? Are you suffering from phobia or whatever? If you are afraid and you have a reason to be afraid, then of course that's a valid reason for you to absent yourself.
Perfect, inshallah. For those of you who are joining us just recently, inshallah, so we are now running an online fatwa session with Sheikh Ahmad Kutty. You can go ahead and type your questions for us. We are live on Islamic Sort of Toronto, our YouTube channel. We're live also on Instagram. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are the three online platforms that we're accepting questions on, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. If you have a way of, if you don't, you can just DM us on any of those three platforms as well, inshallah, if you want your question to be anonymous, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And also, please try to get your questions in English or Arabic, because those are the languages that I can speak. So, Sheikh Ahmed, go ahead, inshallah, with the next question.
I have the other question is, can we offer prayer in Jama in a mosque, keeping 6 feet distance from two worshippers? This is a requirement. The requirement of the health authorities is, if you are holding congregational prayers, we need to keep this distance in order to protect ourselves, everyone who is praying there. Now, this question is raised because there are some so-called muftis out there who are saying this is not congregational prayer, because they point out a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he stressed so much, emphasized so much about forming correct lines, consolidated lines, taraso, shoulder to shoulder, and touching each other, touching the shoulder, and very, very close to one another. Because if there is a gap between the two, a shaitan will stand there. This is the hadith they are citing as an evidence to say that this is an essential integral of validity of congregational prayer. Now, they are ignoring the fact there is a well-attested tradition from the Prophet ﷺ where he mentions the requirement, the basic requirement, the most absolute requirement of the congregational prayer, when he said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ فَإِذَا كَبَّرَ فَكَبِّرُوا وَإِذَا رَكَعَ فَارْكَعُوا وَإِذَا سَجَدَ فَاسْجُدُوا وَإِذَا صَلَّى جَالِسًا قَائِمًا فَصَلُّوا قِيَامًا وَإِذَا صَلَّوا جَالِسًا فَصَلُّوا جُلُوسًا أَجْمَعُونَ. And then he said, أَقِمُوا الصُّفُوفَ فَإِنَّ إِقَامَةَ الصُّفُوفِ مِنْ حُسْنِ الصَّلَاةِ. So there are two things here. Number one, the Prophet is establishing the most essential absolute requirement for the validity of congregational prayer. What is that requirement? That you should be able to follow the Imam, either by looking at him, because you need to follow the Imam in each of the positions. You should be able to know when Imam is going to ruku. You should be able to know when Imam is going to sujood. You should be able to know when Imam is rising from ruku. You should be able to know when the Imam is rising from sujood, or from one sajda when he is sitting between the two sajdas. You should be able to discern and know about the movements of the Imam, the postures of the Imam distinctly for you to follow. As long as you are able to do so, you can follow the congregation, and the prayer is valid according to the vast majority of scholars, according to the four schools. This is a consensus of the four schools, even if there is an interruption in the line. And we know in masajid there are pillars separating one line, the same line, the worshippers from each other. There are pillars or walls, and they pray. So the lines are not connected, and yet they pray, and nobody said the prayer is not valid. And the same way, the question is raised, somebody comes and prays all by himself in the last line, because either he did not find a room in the line in front of him, So instead of dragging someone, he just stayed there and prayed. Although the act itself is undesirable, they all say the prayer is still valid. You know why? Because the Prophet only used the word min husni salah. It's part of the excellence of prayer. He didn't say it is an essential integral of prayer. And this is how the Sahaba also understood this order of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we learn from the precedents of companions, even the women, the wives of the Prophet, they would follow the Imam by praying in their apartments. And after the death of the wives of the Prophet, some of the companions would go and pray in the apartments of the Prophet, joining the prayer, the Imam, of course, because of overcrowding or whatever. And also we learned that Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu and Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, both of them used to pray. They prayed in rooms, in the adjacent close to the masjid in a house, following the prayer of the masjid. And that is why today we see, in the hotels facing the Kaaba, Haram, Masjidul Haram, the guests are praying in the musalla of the hotel, following the Imam. And they see the worshipper, the lines flowing from the Haram, and they also see it in the monitor. And they allow also, many scholars have allowed people to join the Salah from clock tower. So all of these are, valid reasons, evidences for us to say that because of the COVID-19, we are forced to interrupt, to break that rule of forming proper lines. And the reason is we want to protect the health, protect people, and that is a great priority in religion, in Sharia, protecting the health. We are not supposed to endanger our health. وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Don't drag yourself, don't kill yourself, don't cause death. La larara wa la lirar. And the Prophet ﷺ said, you are not supposed to do anything that will harm others. So based on this, prayer in this way, because of the requirement, specific requirement, is valid. It's a congregational prayer, unlike as some so-called muftis have said, because they are simply basing on literal reading of the text without understanding the rationale and the meaning of this text. And that is why we need to follow the majority, the four schools, as well as the mainstream scholars who allow for that. But once this COVID pandemic, this exigency is lifted, and of course we have to form proper Jama, because it is very important, because one of the reasons why we pray in Jama is to strengthen that community and the bond, fraternal bond, bonds of Islamic brotherhood. So, of course, but the exception calls for an exceptional ruling. And as long as there, exception is in place, we can allow for that concession, to follow that concession. But once that exceptional circumstance is removed, we need to apply the normal procedures, inshallah. Allahu alam. Any question you have? These are the questions that I have.
Yes, so there are a couple of questions if you'd like for me to begin, inshallah. So the one question that comes here is, can you explain the whole reasoning behind following a madhab? What if the imam of my mosque or my mosque itself follows a different madhab than the one that I follow itself? Let's talk about, sorry, Sheikh, if you don't mind, let's talk about madhabs as a whole, inshallah, and if we can explain to us whether someone should just follow a specific madhab or what should a general Muslim do?
Well, the question itself calls for details, and I know this. We have constraints of time and space here. I have answered this question in detail on my, askthescholar.com, as well as Islam Online and archives. This fatwa was available. It's also maybe published in About Islam, the present site, international site. The brief answer is, in Islam, there is nothing in the sources or in the understanding of the mainstream scholarship that binds or makes it obligatory on anyone to follow a specific madhab. Having said that, in Islam, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Those who are not well versed in fiqh, when they are faced with issues, they are supposed to not judge by their own whims, but they should refer to the authority, those who are more knowledgeable. We have precedents in the actions or the precedents of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It happened that Sahaba were traveling, a group of Sahaba, and one of the person became, he had a wet dream and he was sick, and then he woke up and he asked the congregation, the people with him, other companions, that close proximity, whether he should take a bath. He's sick. They said, yes, you should take a bath because you have experienced that ihtilam, wet dream. So he took a bath and his condition worsened and he died. And it was reported to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said they killed him because by giving him a fatwa based on ignorance, he should have asked a more knowledgeable person. So based on this, the scholars stipulate that those who are not well versed in religion, they should, when they are faced with issues, they should consult a scholar, regardless of whether that scholar belongs to the same school you are following or not. You don't need to consider whether this scholar belongs to the same school. The school comes because of the fact, because most of the Islam came to different countries. The scholars who came to North India, for instance, I'm giving an example, most of them belong to the Hanafi school of jurisprudence. Whereas in South India, where I come from, the scholars there came from the Shafi school. So in South, we have predominantly people who follow the Shafi school, not because they know that school, but this is what they were taught by their fathers, their parents, and what the scholars who used to teach them used to transmit. So you are living in that part of the world, a certain, and you brought up in that school, you don't need to change it. If you come to another country, you don't need to change it. You can stick with that school until you have a new issue. And when you are faced with the new issue, you can ask any scholar who is qualified. He is a person of integrity, and you can trust. You can ask that person, regardless whether he follows the school where you come from or not. Now, if you go to study the fiqh and you have mastered the one school, initially they start with the text of a school. At that stage, you cannot follow another school because you don't know other school. But you are into comparative jurisprudence. You are not bound to follow a strict school in everything. But mostly scholars, in my case, I came from Shafi school. So in my practice, I follow mostly Shafi school. But when I have to give a fatwa, I consider the circumstance. Then because I have now studied the comparative jurisprudence, I am exposed to the various views. So I would have to prefer another ruling of another school. That is fine. So I hope I have made it clear. It's not people growing up here, our new generation, they are not bound by one school. They should follow the teacher, regardless of who that teacher is. If he's a Hanafi and he's teaching you and he's your teacher, you follow him. Until you have a question, specific question, you are allowed to ask any scholar. So in our institute, alhamdulillah, we have people who follow the Salafi. I personally do not follow the Salafi school. I follow the madhahib mostly, or I prefer my, select one of the authentic views that I have considered, evaluated. So there is this tolerance in Islam, and that's the beauty of this ikhtilaf ummati rahma. The difference of opinion in my ummah is a sign of divine mercy. And that is why recently I got a question from a young man who is brought up in a home where the father is a Hanafi scholar. But this student happened to be exposed to the presentation of a Salafi scholar. So, he says this kind of salah is not valid. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. No one of any of the prominent scholars said that the prayer of Hanafis is not valid, or prayer of Malikis is not valid. It's only the Salafi version of prayer is valid. Astaghfirullah. We cannot make that statement. So I had to advise that young man, you stick with the school, with the Hanafi way, until you have a specific question, and there is no answer in that school or from the scholar, that you can ask anybody, and you don't need to change, because the man is asking the question, how come the others are not raising their hands when going to ruku and coming up from sujood, they are only raising hands in takbiratul ihram. I had to tell the person, Imam Abu Hanifa himself answered why he didn't teach that, because we have a beautiful incident of Imam Abu Hanifa meeting with Imam Awza'i in Makkah, and they are debating this issue. Imam Awza'i asked Imam Abu Hanifa, how come you don't raise your hands in Salah except in Takbiratul Ihram? You don't raise your hand while going to Ruku or any other time. Imam Abu Hanifa said, this is because Hamad told me, Ibrahim told him, Al-Qama told him, Abdullah ibn Masud told him that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only raised his hand at the time of Takbiratul Ihram. So Awza'i said, but I have this report, going back to Ibn Umar. Answer of Abu Hanifa was, Abdullah ibn Masud is more prominent a companion of the Prophet than Abdullah ibn Umar, who is the junior companion of the Prophet. So Awza'i had no answer. He could not answer that question. So don't put down any of these four Imams. Whatever reason, whatever ruling they have given in such matters, they didn't make it up themselves. They have their evidence. They passed on what they learned from their teachers, going back to the companions of the Prophet, especially in such matters. Okay, so don't take this issue of differences among the schools. If you are going to a masjid, you are supposed to pray behind that. This is what Hanafi scholars, they used to go to Medina. Imam Abu Hanifa used to go to Medina. Abu Yusuf used to go to Medina. Muhammad ibn Hassan used to go to Medina. And they used to pray behind Maliki scholars, who different in some of these minor details, but while praying behind them, they would do exactly what they are doing. And we have a good example of Abu Yusuf rahimahullah. He had led the Juma prayer, and actually he had made wudu from a well, drawing water from a well in which later on they found a dead rat. It was discovered after the Juma. So according to the ruling of Hanafi school, this prayer is invalid, because the water, according to Hanafis, is impure, this kind of water. So Abu Yusuf rahimahullah said, in that case, we follow the opinion of our brothers from Medina. If the water is too much, more than 2 kullas, it dispels impurity. So you see how the scholars tolerate each other. The difference of opinion among the Sahaba coming to the schools is coming from the Sahaba. They used to differ on such issues, and yet each one of them used to follow the other without any question, because they consider it as valid differences. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to two people who had prayed two different ways, Banu Qurayla, when he went to Banu Qurayla expedition, he had made a statement in the masjid, no one should pray Asr except in Banu Qurayla. And on the way, the time of Asr is expiring. So they discussed among themselves. One group said, regardless of whether the time is expiring or not, we can only pray when we arrive there. This is the order of Prophet. The other said, oh no, it only applies when we still have time to pray. Well, after reaching there, the time didn't expire. So one group prayed, another group didn't pray. When the issue was raised to the Prophet ﷺ, he told both groups, you are right, you are right. So both groups are right according, because they made the best of their, they interpreted based on the reasoning and the best intention they had to follow the order of Rasulullah ﷺ. So that is why the four schools are within the mainstream. Of course, that doesn't mean each and every ruling in each of these schools is sound and it should be applied now. Of course, that's not the case, because there are issues that we face here. We cannot follow any of these schools 100%. And anyone, nobody said you have to follow 100% any school. So I hope I have clarified myself, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. That was clear, alhamdulillah. Sheikh, we have another question here that comes to the actual combining of salahs, and this is actually there are a couple of questions that have come in one. So one of them is trying to find out the reasoning behind, or way, like when do we combine between Maghrib and Isha, and when do we combine between Dhuhr and Asr? The rationale for the second question, just so you know, is this gentleman says he's an elderly man, and that in the summertime it becomes really late for him to pray Isha with Maghrib. To pray Isha after Maghrib, to the point where he says he almost, and he doesn't even know what he's reciting. He's so tired, he doesn't know what he's reciting. So is it permissible for him to go ahead and to combine Isha with Maghrib in the summer times?
Okay, so the question of combining the prayers, the scholars are allowed, people like Ibn Abbas, starting from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, the Prophet Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reports, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam combined between the two prayers, Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha, without any reason of rain or fear. And when he was asked, why did you do so? He said, لِكَيْلَا يُهْرِجَ أُمَّتَهُ, in order to not cause hardship for his ummah. From that, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu and others in the Hanbali school as well have reasoned, they have ruled that when a person is experiencing, Prophet sets precedence for us, to apply for this kind of situations when we have a hardship. The gentleman has a hardship, he is exhausted and he want to pray Isha before going to bed. Definitely it's a valid reason for him to follow the ruling of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, and also which is endorsed by scholars from other schools as well, where he is facing a situation like that. And also the people who can follow that ruling should be, for instance, the children, they have to go to school and they go to bed, they need to go to bed early. Surely they can pray Isha, at least half an hour. If they can wait half an hour after Maghrib, they can pray Isha, that is good. But if they cannot even wait that much and they need to go to sleep, bed, as they have to wake up early, they can combine Isha with Maghrib in that case. And the same can be used for those who are working in an assembly line or attending universities. It happened to me also when I was attending the university in Toronto and McGill. Oftentimes this prayer times conflict with your lectures or seminar courses. So you are forced to combine the two prayers. And also sometimes you are on highway. What do? You are on a highway in winter, and one after the other prayer comes. And you cannot stop that car and pray. In that case, you make the niyyah. The best thing in that case is that since we can only combine Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Dhuhr or in the time of Asr, make your journey to fit that, so that you don't end up combining Asr with Maghrib. You cannot do that. And Maghrib you can combine with Isha. When it comes to Fajr, you cannot take it to Dhuhr time. So try to observe as much as possible this kind of, because inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta, because prayer has been appointed, instituted at the fixed times. So you have to, but certain latitude is provided by the Prophet ﷺ himself. He's allowed for women who are experiencing chronic bleeding. He allowed them to combine the two prayers because it's hard for them to keep themselves clean for each salah, to clean themselves. So he allowed them to make Jama. And the same goes for people who are sick. They cannot keep themselves clean and they cannot rise from their bed. They are allowed to combine the prayers, of course. And that is, I hope I have answered. But this cannot be a habit. You cannot sit home and watch the television after combining Isha with Maghrib, and you go to bed later on. No, that is not allowed, because the concession is a concession to take into consideration to remove the hardship. Al-dararu yuzal, al-mashaqqatu tajlibu taysir. Where there is a hardship, the rigors of the law are relaxed. This kind of principles are inferred from the traditions of the Prophet as well as from the ayat of the Quran. So the ruling is based on this kind of principles of jurisprudence. So of course it's applicable to conditions where there is a hardship involved. Now, as for a general concept of qasr and jam, if you are asking about that, that's a different issue. You want me to answer that now or later on?
Yeah, if it's something that's quick, inshallah ta'ala, I think you actually did explain it a little bit in the previous question as well.
As for the qasr, we cannot do that when we are local. We can only do that in journey, long journey, more than 83 kilometers you are traveling, then you can make that qasr. And actually, as long as we are in journey, according to the four schools, it's the three schools. It is, if the journey is, if the stay is more than 4 days, then it's best that you pray in full. But according to the Hanafi school, it can be extended to 15 days or 18 days. Or according to our schools, if you are not sure how long you will stay in a place, you have gone to a city for an urgent business and you don't know how long it takes, in that case you can pray qasr. But having said that, if you are going to the local masjid to pray, you have to pray with the imam full. And that is the ruling. Now, in the case of jam, while traveling, you are allowed to make jam. And the Prophet himself, as Ibn al-Qayyim has said, used to do jam only when he was traveling or in Arafah and Mina. Yes, that is a situation different. You can, Arafah, he did make jam, and Muzdalifah, he made jam. And of course, in Mina, we have the report that he prayed each of the prayers, on their own time in qasr. But of course, there is a ruling of scholars there. You can make jam, especially if you are a haji. You are not staying there for more than 4 days. These are the kind of allowances we have. Having said that, prayer is something that we should not compromise. We should pray as much as on time, fulfilling all of the requirements. But where there is a hardship, there is always a relaxation in Sharia.
Very good. I have a question here, Sheikh, that has come about. This question is from a sister. She's saying that if her hair is thinning, is she allowed to add hair to it? She wears hijab, and it is just to cover what she has lost in hair, not to add length.
Can I answer this question another time? Because this requires some detailed answer.
Okay.
So can we put it off for the next?
Yeah, so we could put it for the next week, inshallah ta'ala.
Next session.
The other two questions are actually even more complex. I've chosen this one here because I thought this would be an easier one.
Yes.
One of them is a request that's asking you to speak about the concept of illness in Islam and what we need to be aware in terms of medical treatment, terminal illness, old age, and options to the options of do not resuscitate, and also the choice to, I think it's called dignity death, the choice of
mercy death.
Yeah, mercy death. Yeah, but I think that's a complicated one, so we can talk about that next week, inshallah ta'ala, if that's okay.
this better that instead of giving brief answers, I have to explain some background.
Yes. Okay.
So it's better. But having
Okay.
said that, I should emphasize that as Muslims, we need to receive treatments and take all the preventive measures to safeguard our health, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to take care of our health. It's an amana. It's a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should go, do everything possible within our ability to take care of our health and to take medication. Tadawu ibadallah. O servants of Allah, take medication, receive treatments, because Allah has appointed a cure for every disease except old age. There is no cure for the old age, and you cannot avert death. When the death comes, we have to go, but in the other issues, the complex issues, we can deal next time. We have enough then questions for the next time.
خلاص, no problems, inshallah ta'ala, Sheikh. So I believe it is now 10 minutes to 8 o'clock, 10 minutes to 9 o'clock, inshallah, and Maghrib time will be soon. So if you just want to finish, inshallah, with a final word, inshallah, no, we can finish off.
You want me to say the final word?
Yes, please, inshallah.
Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us. May Allah protect us and our children, our families, and our community, fellow citizens. We should always pray for those who are helping to protect, working to protect us, everyone, including the physicians, the health personnel, volunteers, and all of this, this kind of people who are serving us. Pray for Brother Mamoon, pray for his family, pray for Farhad, Farid, and all those volunteers who are trying to serve us. Pray for this old man too, inshallah, and my wife, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should pray for each other, and that is what Islam teaches us. And we should also try to acquire knowledge from the sources, inshallah, because there is a lot of ignorance out there. And one of the main problem I see on the internet is people pick a hadith and make an interpretation out of it without studying the context of it, without figuring out how it is related to the other hadith on the same issue. It's very important. We should never ever do that. We should not pick hadith out of context and make an explanation out of it, because then we are destroying the coherence and the consistency of the Sharia. So it's always important to seek knowledge from the proper sources, inshallah. And also, whenever we are faced with issues, we should consult people who are more knowledgeable. Even though you have been given an answer and you are not satisfied with the answer, try to find more explanation from someone who can give a better explanation of it. Having said that, in Islam, we have a way of life that is not very, very rigid. It's not. Sharia is revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to remove the hardship and make life smooth and comfortable. Yuridullahu bikumul yusr wala yuridu bikumul usr. Allah wants ease and comfort for you. He doesn't want to impose hardship on you. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. He did not appoint hardship for you in this religion. So understand this, there are relaxations valid for valid reasons in Sharia, and that is why you approach scholars. But if a scholar is in the habit of saying no, 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 haram, 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 he is breaking the rule. You know why? Because it doesn't need any knowledge. Knowledge is required if this person can come up with a reasoning for you, an evidence for you to give you a relaxed ruling. As Imam Sufyan al-Sawri said, at-tashdid, that's not ilm. You're making it harder, harder, harder. It doesn't need any knowledge. You need knowledge to make things easy. So make use of this, understand this principle of the Sharia. So, but today people say that the scholar is a scholar if you make things harder and harder. That is not the approach of Islamic scholarship. And that's why Umar ibn Abdul Aziz radiallahu anhu used to say, I am so happy that companions of the Prophet had different views. If it had been one view, we would be forced to follow one view. Because they differed, we can pick and choose from among them as long as it is valid it has a valid ground for it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to understand the beauty of the Sharia, because the Sharia adlun kulluha, everything in the Sharia is based on reasoning, and it is there to protect the well-being and welfare of humanity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in our effort to seek knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us if I have said anything wrong. It's from shaitan. If I have said it right, it's a pure gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah reward me and you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. May Allah Azza wa Jalla bless you, inshallah. So, for those of you who have joined us, inshallah, so we are going to end now. This session will be happening every Friday night, inshallah ta'ala, at 8 o'clock. That's 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's Toronto time, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Do please, you can leave comments, questions right on the live stream here, or when you log on, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, next week, you can type your questions. Please do share these videos, inshallah, so everybody can benefit. And do follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also on YouTube. Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. May Allah Azza wa Jalla bless you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you and grant you Jannah, inshallah, and a long, healthy life, inshallah, ala ta'ati. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Jazakallahu khair.